Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We know people will be joining us as we go through the hour, but we're at 4 o'clock, so let's get started. Of course, we're going to open up for Q&A as we move through the hour, but just want to start out with some brief announcements and then a synopsis of some news that we received this week, mostly at the Council of Presidents yesterday. The first thing is you probably received an email earlier this week announcing the campus climate survey. Just to remind everybody, in 2021, we contracted with Susan Rankin and Associates, generally hubbed out of Penn State University, very experienced in working with universities and college systems regarding DEI work, and particularly doing these campus climate surveys. And Rankin and Associates have worked with our committee, and the survey, which will be open for a few weeks, has gone live. It's important that everybody, students, faculty, and staff in our various classifications and job titles and administrative or other units respond so that we get a good sense of how people are experiencing the campus. A climate survey is meant to be encompassing of everybody in our collegiate community. So I strongly encourage everybody to take the 20 or 25 minutes. You're going to need about 25 minutes to sit through because you have to go from beginning to end to complete the survey. And then in a couple of months, we will likely get the raw data and some quick analysis, and it will be turned over to us to do more analysis. And we'll likely have Dr. Rankin and or one of her confederates come to campus probably in the fall to give us an update on the high points or low points, depending on your perspective in terms of a survey. The survey is meant, and the process is meant to not point fingers. It's meant to make us better and be aware of soft spots, if you will, places where we're not necessarily doing as well as we would like to be doing in terms of our diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And certainly having a climate that is hospitable to all manner of community members is important to us. So please take the time to do the survey. The second thing, and I'm happy to do it. It was a good conversation as we had this morning, because Chancellor Matos was here on campus, and one of the things he asked as we went through campus and went by the ball field was, are you having commencement? And everybody in the vehicle said, absolutely, we're having commencement, and we're going to have it out here again. So on May 26th, which is a Thursday, we will be, fingers crossed and nothing changing, we will be having Lehman commencement on campus for the first time, I guess, in 2 years. It'll be my first commencement. I'm always excited about commencement. It's wonderful to meet our students in that space, and frankly, it's even sometimes more of a thrill to meet their family members and their friends, because it's that moment where everybody realizes that it's a singular accomplishment that happens because there are a lot of other people behind the scenes lifting our students up and nudging them along. And it's also a place, frankly, to celebrate faculty and staff, because our students cross the line because they're motivated and they've got grit and resilience and talent and all of that other stuff, but they also get across the line because they're supported and they're stimulated and they're challenged and they're coached and they're mentored by our tremendous faculty and staff. So I always find commencement to be the best day and the best celebration on college campuses. I understand that on the 24th, which is a Tuesday, we'll also be hosting the Honors Convocation. And obviously, as we get closer to the events, more details will be posted publicly and be emailed out to people. And I have no doubt, particularly for commencement, there will be requests that will go out for volunteers to help us manage the events. So something really fun to look forward to. Beyond that, let's pivot to the operational stuff. So on Monday, so what, 4 days from now, 5 days from now, the Department of Education in New York City will announce its masking policies for K through 12. In anticipation of that, we anticipate that the Chancellor's office will send a system-wide email tomorrow. I'm guessing sometime after lunch, sometime perhaps between 1 and 2. It could come later, it could come earlier, but the Chancellor will be announcing what CUNY's decision is with respect to masking policies on our campuses. I've no doubt that the Chancellor will continue to encourage prudence and caution I don't really know. He didn't preview yesterday where they will land with the masking policy. Only to say that that we will all collectively get the memo sometime tomorrow afternoon. At the same time, it was announced that our random testing protocol, so 20%, what is it, every week or every 2 weeks, will continue until the end of the spring semester. There are questions that have been asked by various campuses about whether or not that random testing could continue through the summer, in part because of concerns about how different campuses handle their summer school, and in part because of prior years' concerns about there being moments, events, activities during the summer that could lead to a reignition or an increase in COVID exposures and infection rates, either across the city or across the system, or more localized on campuses. I have no sense of there's going to be a commitment for random testing through the summer, but it is clear that we will continue to have it until we get to commencement. And then in terms of summer and fall, we have been given the latitude at the campus level to, if you will, chart our own course. And so going on 2 weeks ago, I sent out a memo to the deans and the cabinet laying out the parameters for planning for next fall. There are no mandates or targets or sort of artificial goals that have been set. It's campuses deciding what is the most impactful way to deliver our education to our students, bearing in mind our business practices, student success measures, curriculum, program, and course priorities. And then, of course, all of that informed by the lessons we learned through COVID, and care and attention to making exceptions where it's prudent because of an individual faculty member's circumstances. What I have asked the deans to do is to model next fall based on fall of 19, and then make adjustments based on those parameters I just suggested as necessary. I would predict we're likely going to end up somewhere between 60 and 70% face-to-face. Why do I predict that? Because we were about 70%, maybe a little bit above 70% face-to-face prior to COVID. And with some tweaks and adjustments and some additional programs going online, we'll likely see some moderating effects there. The other thing I did indicate in my memo is, as we had in the spring, it is expected that all of our full-time faculty will teach at least one class in a face-to-face modality, unless that faculty member or any adjunct are assigned to teach in fully online courses, obviously. Excuse me while I flip my page. It was a busy meeting here yesterday. The other important point that was positive that we took away is that budget issues continue to move forward. The feedback for CUNY continues to be positive, so much so that the current new sort of push as part of our aggressive approach is to remind the legislature and the governor that collective bargaining agreements and mandatory cost adjustments are not necessarily included in our budgets. And there have been estimates that have ranged from 135 million to 250 million is necessary to cover those mandatory cost increases. And that range of dollars has been put in front of both the governor and the leadership of both houses. We're not really sure where we're going to end up there. We are much more positive that the main thrust of our system asks have gotten very positive feedback. I will say, in terms of Lehman's asks, which are in concert with what the system is asking, but we have some very specific things both on the capital side and the discretionary expense side. We've gotten extremely positive feedback from the Bronx delegation, and we, along with Hostos and Bronx Community College, did a presentation to the delegation here about 3 weeks ago. And last week, met individually with several members of the Bronx delegation and got confirmation that all of our requests from Lehman, both on the capital and discretionary side, were being advanced to the full caucus of both houses. And we'll see where that lands, but that's a good sign. They did not end up prioritizing or taking our prioritization and then piecemealing it. They simply enumerated all of our requests and advanced it for consideration from the whole group, from the whole House, from the whole Assembly. So I am hopeful that that we get many of our requests. In total, between the capital and discretionary, it's a little bit more than $24 million. Vice President Rotolo has joined me, and I joked to her that felt pretty aggressive. And I believe she is the one who said, yeah, but Hunter College's capital requests enumerated equal 36 million, which has given me pause and has reminded me that maybe I need to be even more aggressive on behalf of Lehman next time through. But let's first see how many of these requests we get through this cycle, and then we'll figure out the strategy to ask for even more next time. But all indications are very positive, and that's a good thing for us. Parenthetically, but importantly, because we get so many of our students from transfer, the discussions about how to baseline funding for the community colleges seems to be going well. Community colleges have been hit hard by enrollment declines, and they're struggling on a number of fronts. But some of the calculations for how the state might invest in the community colleges, in the two-year colleges, seem to be searching for the best benchmark, not last year or the year before, but possibly an average of a number of years, or going back to a pre-pandemic condition when enrollments were better, and then baselining any new investment off of that. So that is wonderful. I've been concerned about particularly Hostos and Bronx being constrained unnecessarily, because that will have a knock-on effect later on, particularly if they're not able to offer all of their academic programs, or if they have to starve some of their student support programs. That impacts students that oftentimes end up becoming our students. And we certainly want to have as robust a pipeline from those two schools as we can possibly have. There was a slight warning in terms of the budget that we're aware of and have been aware of for a while, but a gentle reminder that both the state and the city are placing greater and greater scrutiny on how entities and institutions have been using stimulus funds during COVID. And so just a gentle reminder to all of us on our campuses that we need to use the money as it was intended. And I feel like we've done that, and we need to use the money that we asked for before we ask for any more money. And so we are going through that process at Lehman. I don't have any concerns about, us spending money on, pile Y, even though the money was given to us for pile X. But obviously, as we have had challenges with having all of our personnel engaged, we may be in arrears in terms of encumbering some of the money, but I think we'll be in good shape if and when the auditors or the controllers come requesting for data from Lehman College. And then the other piece of maybe the more negative piece about our budget has to do with enrollment. Now, I think folks on our campus, faculty and staff, have done a heroic job through last summer and into this particular admission cycle to prop up our enrollment and try to hit our targets. And we've done pretty well, and actually better than most other schools in the system. However, the chancellor continues to look for ways in which campuses can be prompted to, if you will, redouble or improve our recruitment efforts and our retention efforts. And so Undoubtedly, at the next Council of Presidents meetings, we'll have a sort of demonstration from a number of campuses and a recitation for the chancellor and his staff of what each campus has done uniquely and well to improve recruitment and improve retention. And so it's a predictable exercise. It's probably a good exercise for us to go through as a system, particularly if we can learn from another and share resources and ideas. But it is just a gentle reminder of how concerned people in the central office are about our short-term to long-term enrollment projections, and making sure that each of our institutions is cognizant of our enrollment challenges and thoughtful about how we engage them and move forward. And so, I look forward to the opportunity to show what we've been doing, because I think there's been a lot of innovation at Lehman, and I think there's been a lot of good thinking and hard work to try to hit our targets. And as I said, we've hit so many of the targets that were put in front of us for this year. So I feel pretty good where we are at as an institution. Now, some of the more complicated things that are still sort of percolating there, as I said, we'll hear about the masking policy tomorrow for a number of us, particularly on the instructional side and some of the non-instructional staff generally located in the PSC collective bargaining unit. There's still a lot of work, and it's complex work for all sorts of reasons about the vaccine mandate. That is ongoing. There has been correspondence that we've all received that suggested that April 1 would be the deadline to upload our vaccination information. As it stands, I'm not so sure that that's going to be a hard and definitive deadline. But it certainly is going to be a milestone in this process. But the process is, as I said, complicated, and it's taking time. And I know any number of you would like to know definitively what is going to be the policy in the process. And all I can say at this point on behalf of CUNY Central is that the discussions continue between the PSC leadership and labor relations and leadership at CUNY Central. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we do get some clarity about how we need to move forward and how we are going to move forward. From my perspective, I think those are the biggest issues. I do got a couple of sort of small things. As I said, the chancellor was on campus today, got to interact with faculty, staff, and students in our business programs as well as in our nursing programs. We got a quick sort of drive-by look of the nursing building. I will say that we have one piece left with nursing that we'd like the city to fund, and that's the remaining $3.2 million, I believe it is, to finish out the equipping of the new nursing building in the next year as that building comes online. Feedback we've received from the city council has been positive, and certainly we have a number of Bronx folks there who are advocates for Lehman. So I feel like we're in pretty good shape. They've already funded the first two phases, so it would be surprising not to fund this phase, but 3.2 million is 3.2 million. It's not a inconsiderable ask. But hopefully we end up in a very good space here over the next couple of months, and maybe a year and a half from now, we're celebrating in the foyer of a brand new nursing building that is gleaming and state of the art and extremely well equipped to support our undergraduate and graduate programs in nursing. Because certainly we're getting a lot of noise from Bronx entities saying they need more nurses and they want more nurses of all sorts of stripes and specializations. So we will do our best. We will do our best to meet those targets and goals. From my perspective, those are the highlights. I'm just going to skim through one more time through through my notes here to see if there are any other items that catch my attention that be good for the good of the order. But I think we have captured all of the important pieces, minus one, excuse me. There is one, particularly if there's any students on here. So a little bit more than a year ago, notifications started going out to students for Spark training. You should be receiving more information about Spark. We would like to get to 100%. Spark is an acronym that is associated with conduct issues, in particular sexual and gender harassment. I think it's important that everybody understand, particularly going back to the question about climate, that that we need to be informed about what is appropriate and inappropriate behavior and what are the consequences of that inappropriate behavior. So if there are any students on this call and you have not responded to any of the emails that you've received about completing the Spark training, I strongly encourage you. In fact, I beseech you to go online and complete the training. It'll take you maybe 30 minutes to complete the training. It is pretty straightforward. It is interactive to some extent, and most importantly, it is clear in terms of what you need to know in order to stay on the right side of the line. So again, if there are students on here, please, I encourage you to open up that email and follow the links and complete the training. And that's all I have. Before we start taking the questions, I'm going to take just a minute here and pivot to Vice President Rotolo and ask her if there's anything she wants to contribute or add to. And if she doesn't, that's fine. Then we'll pivot back to the questions.
I just want to say that I'm so happy to see so many people on campus. We were walking through Carmen today and classes were going on and people were happy, and it's just been really great. And it's been particularly nice, the weather. So a lot of people are out on campus. So it feels alive again. So I've been enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I walked around, got carted around, I guess, with VP Rotolo today when the chancellor was here. And you know, I may have to sit in this corner office as the president, but I still fancy myself as a faculty member. And the reason I became a faculty member was those students. And so to be able to interact in classroom spaces and in classroom hallways and see students is, it's always a reminder of what our responsibilities are as stewards of our resources here at Lehman. But personally and selfishly, it's also a reminder of what affirmatively gets me up in the morning, gets me excited about working at a college or a university. So I'll echo what Vice President Rotolo said. All right, let us get to the questions. We'll start with Thomas Conroy. Thomas, we're gonna punt on the mask mandate until we see what CUNY comes out with tomorrow. And so if CUNY directs us to handle things differently in and outside of our buildings, then we will follow what the directives and guidance are from CUNY Central. So I know it may not feel good right now to have the president say I'm punting on your question one, but I'm suggesting we're only punting for about 22 or 23 hours, and you'll have your questions answered by CUNY tomorrow. In terms of the pedestrian gates, that's a conversation we can have, particularly if we feel like we're in a safer spot. Part of the reason why we have limited gate access is frankly staffing. And then the other part is security and having to verify folks. Could we open more gates? Possibly, but I'm really concerned about how stretched our public safety people are, and how stretched they have been for months now. We are understaffed, and the fact that we're having to staff gates in order to facilitate safe entrance makes it difficult for them to do the other parts of their jobs on campus, particularly as we have people on campus. In terms of the question from Scott Calvin for commencement any sense as to whether family members will be able to attend? That is the whole reason why we want to do it outside, because we have been given some intimations of guidance from Central, and obviously we have much more flexibility right now if we do it outside. And so while it's going to be a challenge for people manning those gates as folks kind of want to come through, and we'll have to advise people to maybe come early and to be patient so that we can get them through the gates in a timely and safe way. Yeah, the whole idea is to have a real commencement with a real audience, and where necessary and appropriate, real cheering and whooping it up, because commencement should be fun and exciting for everybody. And Joseph, you asked the question about, will the mask mandate be dropped at Lehman in light of the governor's eliminating the mask mandate? I'll turn you back to my response to Thomas's first question. I will not be able to drop that. That will be a CUNY decision, and we will hear from the chancellor tomorrow, all of us, because we'll get a system-wide email. How will graduation for the unvaccinated students look like? Well, right now, in order to access campus as a student, you have to be vaccinated. And so I don't know that that will change as a matter of CUNY policy. And so if it does, then we'll deal with it as is. But Vice President Rotolo?
Yeah, but one of the things we do and will do is we do live stream commencement. So any unvaccinated students who are unable to attend, should that still be in place, will be able to participate via the live stream.
Yeah. And to Rebecca Arzola's question, will random testing be dropped in CUNY along with the mask mandates? Right now, random testing will continue through the end of the spring semester, at least. The question, are non-CUNY staff members, i.e. RF employees, included in the vaccine mandate? I believe they are, if they are in the classifications that are covered, and that's largely, if I remember correctly, just in the PSC. But I believe they are treating RF employees, since we're on campuses, as subject to the vaccine mandate. Deidre O'Boy asked the question, will students who missed commencement over the past 2 years be able to participate, and how will we reach out to those students? So the commencement committee has been thinking of ways and has reached out to the previous 2 classes. I don't believe that we are including them in our commencement, just simply because of space.
Yeah.
But we have reached out, and I believe done a survey, if I remember correctly, about other events or convocations that we might set up for them during that week. If you will think of commencement week as opposed to commencement day. Rene, did you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I believe that they are talking about setting up a separate event for them to be recognized.
Yep.
I don't think the plans have finalized at this point.
Yep. I just got a note from Sunda Sanders from the president's office that those previous classes will be recognized during a separate event during commencement week. And then from Jean Geiger, are there any plans for an in-person event for 2020, 2021 graduates who had the online only ceremony? And Jean, with all due respect, it's the same question. And so, yes, right now we're planning to do a separate recognition event during commencement week for those 2 graduate classes. Jean, I understand. Yes. Sometimes we type simultaneously, and Zoom doesn't allow us to coordinate us because people are obviously in very different spaces. From David Gantz, how are students notified that they must submit their booster docs? Everything that has come through the system is coming to students in emails with directions. I will say this, David, and again, for any students that are out there, do not ignore email from the system. Do not ignore email from us. And you can see what the issues are on the subject line. But we have noticed on some of our campuses, in fact, one of my fellow presidents did an analysis of some of the messages that went out in January and found that less than 10% of his students appeared to be opening up their email. And so, we use email because that's our official way of communicating. And so students are being notified of policies and processes via email, and we're asking them multiple times to please open and read their email. From Professor Galvez, I hope students' views will be taken into consideration in the mask decision. Alicia, I know that there are different ways that the central office connects through governance. I believe there is a student association that periodically meets, of representatives that meets with the chancellor's office. I cannot confirm what level of conversation the mask mandate discussion occurred. I just simply know, based on the briefing yesterday, that that the system office will be sending out something. I can't imagine that the system office will also say, and if you choose to, you are not allowed to wear a mask. So if they come out with a recommendation that the mask mandate is dropped, that doesn't mean that people ought not or can't continue to use masks as they see fit. But again, I can't really conjecture what's coming, because I didn't get enough context or information yesterday beyond the basic briefing of timing, and that a comment or a decision on the mask mandate will be forthcoming. Deidre, I don't know if students have a Blackboard COVID information site. Rene seems to maybe have that information.
Well, it's not in place yet, but Stephen Castellano and I had a conversation yesterday about actually creating a site like that for students on Blackboard. So
Awesome.
we'll be getting together to do that.
Okay. Ruth, thank you for the question. What is being done to address the chronic problem of late paychecks? Someone just told me she won't be paid until 3/24. I'll be honest, after the brouhaha of January, I thought we had this mostly fixed. I did not get an update. We didn't get an update yesterday at the Council of Presidents as to whether or not this was going to continue to be an ongoing problem. I will follow up with system HR to see what continues to be the problem, because we're certainly well into the semester, and people's information should already be loaded up into the payroll system. Bruce's follow-up question is, if the mask mandate is dropped, how will Lehman protect people from stigmatization if they continue to wear masks, perhaps for medical reasons? Ruth, I am confident we will send out an email to campus once the chancellor's email is out there, to say that, to reinforce people's choices. And there are lots of reasons why people will make that choice. For example, I am susceptible to pneumonia, and because of how much time we spend on Zoom, and because I've been wearing a mask this year, and frankly, because the climate is different here, this is the first year in 6 years that I have not gotten pneumonia. So might I continue to wear a mask indoors, particularly around groups? Probably. Why? Because I like not having pneumonia. And it feels really good to not have to go through that process this year. And so I want to be sensitive to people wanting to make the choices that they need to for their own comfort level about the utilization of the mask. If the mask mandate comes down, it's simply a statement that says you're not required to wear a mask in XYZ conditions. But that's different than us stating that if you choose to wear a mask, that is fine, and that is your choice, and that we respect that choice, because we understand that there may be a myriad and complex set of reasons why you would continue to want to and choose to use a mask. We're at 4:34. I got you, Ruth, on the late paychecks. And as has been the pattern And recently, over the last few, we tend to hit this 4:30 to 4:37 mark, and it seems like we take care of our questions. So if there are no other questions, I don't think that Rene and I have any other things to update you on. We will thank you all for, oh, is it possible for unvaccinated student graduates to be tested in order to go to graduation? We would have to get clearance from the central office, because right now the policy is you cannot, as a student, access campus unless you have proven that you are completely vaccinated. So Marie Claire, that would be a challenge for us. Certainly ask the question, but that policy is a decision that was made above VP Rotolo's and my level. Okay, we have dealt with all the open questions, so I'll complete my thank you for attending. Thanks to the folks in IT and the folks in my office. Jack, oh, you're going to hit us with food service on campus. This was a good and robust conversation at University Senate. We are continuing to work in an RFP process to get a vendor to come on campus. It is an ongoing challenge. It's a tough space for vendors to occupy. There aren't that many large vendors out there anymore because of consolidation, and there are a number of smaller vendors. We hope we get a good quality vendor who hews close to our concerns about good quality food at an affordable price. And we probably won't know VP Rotolo until midsummer, perhaps, yeah, who that vendor would be. And David, more food trucks. You know, I mean, that's true in any context, right? Life is better if there are just more food trucks. Every once in a while, I go to Connecticut, and if you go to New Haven, just right off of the interstate there's this sort of line of food trucks that seems to always be there. And would that every major thoroughfare had that. Rebecca, at the top of the meeting, I did mention the campus climate survey. And so maybe we can end there and say yet again, please take the time to open up that email and complete the survey. And remember, that survey went out to every student, faculty, and staff associated with Lehman. And we want to hear from everybody. We want to hear from a robust number of students. We want to hear from the staff. We want to hear from the faculty, because that's important to how Rankin Associates compile the information. Okay, no open questions. Thank you, everybody. It's about 4:40 now. We'll let you go. Have a great rest of the week and a wonderful weekend. And based on the amount of sun I see today, spring is definitely on the way. So thank you, everybody. Hope the rest of the week goes well.